it was time to really get down to business, I suppose, and get serious about what we were there for, and that was to head down towards Çanakkale and the Gallipoli Peninsula, about 4.5 hours away, which we did quite early the next morning.
Yeah, look, we did set out at a very early rate of knots, and yeah, what did it take us? 5 hours, I guess.
About 5 hours, yeah, with a stop in between for some very average coffee. And
got quite used to the coffee though, didn't we? How good was your first coffee when you got back?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Tip, ladies and gentlemen, Turkish coffee, which actually, Jason, you were the first one to try over there amongst our little group. Turkish coffee is great. It's strong. It'll keep you up for about 6 to 7 hours.
Still got the residue in the back of me.
Regardless of your state of mind. However, if it's not Turkish coffee, you're more likely to get a instant powdered cappuccino.
Yeah, look, if you do that at home, if you're a Nescafe cappuccino drinker, well, that's what you're going to get over there, and quite consistent.
Very consistent.
Always the same.
And a very consistent price at $3.50 a cup Australian, so just bear that in mind. So straight down towards the Gallipoli Peninsula, and our first stop was a Turkish memorial.
Yeah, look, it was something that I suppose I didn't have on my agenda, but it was great to actually see. And I guess I guess the Australian and New Zealand stories, but you don't actually get I've never learnt about the Turkish story, so just to hear about, they lost 250,000, men and women in that time. So, it did really affect them significantly, and some of the stories that come out through the trip while the next 2 days were, just the type of people they are, and very proud. And we met our tour guide, obviously down there, and he was obviously talking about, I suppose, the history of the Turkish soldiers and what they went through at war, and very proud people. And it made me I guess really stand up and think about them as well.
Definitely, what it did, I think, as you said, we're so aware of our side of it, but it gave us some perspective. And to visit the Turkish one first really gave you, I guess, a sense of what our boys, one, were up against, but two, that it wasn't just, it wasn't a war that everyone wanted to fight. It was the people that were there under order, under instruction, and often, sometimes didn't even know why they were there. So to see all the graves, and as you can see in the photos here, to see the graves is beautifully kept. The locals actually go there and they fill these little amulets that they keep around their necks. They fill them up with the dirt from the grave sites, and then you go to the big monument itself, which is visible from the other side of the channel, the other side of the Dardanelles, where we stayed, and it's super impressive. It's just a proud nation showing off their wares and their history.
The flags, like the drive down there, AB, if there wasn't a flag every kilometre on a building or on a mountain and across the treetops, it was just everywhere you went there was the Turkish symbol and their flag. So they fly it very proudly. Obviously for what I guess they went through.
That they do. From that, moved on to Cape Helles, the British memorial, or the memorial point. That was fairly impressive as well. One thing that did impress me with all of them was the size, the sheer scale of what the people had erected in order to commemorate those that have gone before them. Then we moved on to Lone Pine, which of course is the Australian Memorial Service area, with significant importance to us because I guess it's one of the most famous battlegrounds from the war with respect to Australians, and it's where the Turkish cleared out this entire hill of all the trees just so that they could, advancing Anzac forces had no cover. They left one up, and that became the place that the Australians were charging for. They could see that one tree by itself, so they're always going to head to Lone Pine. That was it, Lone Pine, Lone Pine. And to be up there before the crowds, which was super important, I think really it brought it home. There was just the 6 of us there. The wind was blowing. There wasn't anyone else. It was silent. We had the place entirely to ourselves. Thanks to Adam, who snuck us past security, who were probably his cousins, Adam being our local tour guide. But yeah, to get up there when there was no one around, it really did hit home, to get up close with the graves themselves, and that was pretty impressive. But what struck you most there, mate?
I guess that solitary tree, just sitting there, and you sort of think, why was that designed like that? And quite genius of them, to be honest with you. But it did. It's up obviously on top of on a mountain, and it's a very beautiful place. Like it's, and the views overlooking the bay and overlooking the mountains, but you just can't help but think of the devastation that happened there. So it was just it's just one of those places. It's just so scenic and beautiful, but the terror and the horror that went on there and the lives that were lost there. Like I think they told a story throughout the service that you're now standing on, or laying on the ground of 10,000
that's what it was. Yeah.
10,000 dead soldiers, and you just sort of think, wow.
And to put it in perspective, for those of you who are coming over, it was 10,000 people in roughly the size of, I would suggest, a soccer pitch.
Yeah,
Would
yeah.
you say maybe a soccer pitch or a couple of tennis courts, but not much bigger than that. So
yeah, probably maybe 2 centre squares.
There you go.
Maybe, I reckon.
2 centre squares and unbelievable stuff. But I think that one hit me the most. And at this point, we're getting towards sunset. We did drop in on Anzac Cove as well. And again, this was a couple of days before the service itself, so we were lucky in that there was no one else really there. I think it was the Australian Air Force Band was doing their thing. They were warming up and rehearsing, and we were able to scope the place out. And once more, when there's not the people there, it really does have a profound impact, and a very different one to when you're surrounded by 10,000 of your closest friends, which we found ourselves a couple of days later. But I think that was a highlight of the trip, getting there early.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably a must-do, and something that I think will continue for the next trips onwards. Being there the day before built a lot of anticipation. Getting to see, I guess, the setup and what's going to happen. It made me quite excited about being there and I guess being in that place. So it was great to actually, after I suppose, doing the 2 services the next day on Anzac Day, it was great to actually have that to yourself the day before.
It's funny we say the day before because it felt like the day before, but once we'd done the Anzac Cove and then we moved up to the trenches, I shouldn't forget that, I was about to bypass it, but the trenches themselves, what you've got to understand, folks, and we just don't get it, is that the trenches were at times 12 to 14 metres apart, and maybe in one whole day, your sole order or sole direction from your commanding officer, who sometimes was 16 or 17 years old himself, was simply to take that trench 14 metres away. Now, thing is, when you're being given those orders, the people that are 14 metres away in the trenches are hearing you, receiving your orders, so they know it's coming, and all of a sudden it's over the top, go for it, get mown down by machine guns, lick your wounds, go back and have a crack maybe the next day. It is extraordinary. Yeah,
it was amazing, and just to hear some of the stories and, they would call truces, throughout the days, and go out and pick up your injured men, bring them back. The Turkish and the Australian and the New Zealand soldiers would sit there, have a smoke together, go back to their trenches, and then on again.
It's unbelievable. It's hard to compute, isn't it?
It just doesn't make sense. But to actually be in these trenches, see the under, the holes where they've obviously tried to dig underneath to the other side.
They've got the tunnels, and we've got a great photo of you with the. Looking into the tunnel there, mate. I'll just pop it up on the screen now. An absolutely awesome photo, and I guess when you're doing that, mate, that's when it really hits home, because they were pretty small, and as you can see there, folks, pretty small, and to get through those on your hands and knees, not knowing if there was a bloke coming from the other way, with your bayonet, and that's it.
Yeah, and
maybe
you just
hand grenade.
You can just imagine, you wouldn't be able to sleep. You just couldn't sleep because. As soon as you close your eyes, I bet you there'd be a hand grenade just coming straight over and dropping at your feet, and then you'd have to pick it up pretty quickly and throw it back, wouldn't you? So, yeah, we laugh about it, but it's...
We do, yeah. Well, we do now.
Yeah.
We didn't standing there, I can tell you right now. I don't think... It was quite strange, actually, when everyone got back on the coach after, in particular the trenches. No one really said anything. Everyone just sat there and sort of looked out the window in our own little world, I guess, for me personally, I was trying to think, how on earth would I have coped?
Yeah.
How could I have done it? And the simple answer was, I don't think I could have.
Yeah. Just little things. I don't know if you did the same, maybe, but you'd walk through the trenches, and then you just find like a little tree that you could just see through to the other side, and you just sort of think, geez, wonder if I was, like a soldier, and that's the view I had of the enemy and what I'd do, or I don't think I'd stick my head up.
And you're not known for not sticking your head up, mate. You'd stick your head in places where angels fear to tread throughout your career. But I tell you, it was mind blowing, and it was you appreciate what the guys went through as much as we possibly can. Of course, not trying to say that we understand, but I think we got as close as we can, which is why I think it's something every Aussie should do. But back to my point of interesting saying it was the day before the service, because it was actually 2 days before the service. The reason it felt like it was the day before is that after a big dinner and a few glasses of red, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think Grubby had a crack at the raki. It was a traditional aniseed-based Turkish drink, much akin to ouzo, from what I can gather. I didn't actually. Do you have one?
No, I didn't.
No, I
smelt it and just
said no, thank you.
singed the nose hairs.
Absolutely, but you can see on the screen there Andrew getting into it, and he wasn't shy for a bit of a drink either. But an early night that night, because it was actually the 24th, so the Sunday, that we knew at that point we weren't going to be spending the night in the hotel. We took off in the morning, went to the city of Troy, the lost city of Troy, saw the ruins there, as I guess a bit of a prelude and something to break it up. Interesting to see, interesting to climb up in the toy horse that they've got there now, and see the history there. But all the while you couldn't really concentrate on that because you knew what was coming up. And fortunately, we had a small coach. We got to Anzac Cove, the road was closed, and as it always is. And being in a small coach, we managed to back into a gap right at the front of the line and wait there, kicking the footy for a couple of hours until they let the coaches through. And from then, it was just pandemonium.
Yeah, look, it was. It was a long wait. It was probably a good three hours, I suppose, once we got through the front gates and then we got up to the top of the mountain. But the anticipation was there the whole time. AB, it was just. Never once did I feel, I guess, hurry this show up. It was just, I suppose, all right, let's just deal with it, soak it up, because you knew what was coming was going to be quite special. And, once we got off the bus, we parked the bus, and then you go through the security gates, and then you're walking down to Anzac Cove. It just starts to build with you, and the people, the atmosphere. I've had friends before that have gone and have been disappointed because there have been lots of people there. But for me, I actually quite enjoyed having that company and just seeing people and just seeing the patriotism and the Aussies and the New Zealanders, dressing up and getting there, and the respect that everyone showed throughout the evening was really, really good. I haven't been, I guess, amongst a crowd like that where I haven't seen. We always see idiots.
Yep.
There wasn't one idiot out there.
Yep.
So it was very comfortable.
I think one of the big things was, and your brother had been there a couple of years prior, and mentioned that they had booze or alcohol in there the year that he went, and obviously people were. There's always that element of drunkenness and a small minority, I suppose, that don't respect the occasion as much as they should. Not a drop of alcohol passed through the gates. I mean, I'm sure there was some snuck through. We didn't see it. But I think that just added to the behaviour and the solemn mood of the whole place. But I mean, we got in there at, what was it, 6:30,
Yep.
roughly. Sun was just starting to think about setting, and we took a little piece of footage up in the grandstands.
There we are, guys. We're down here at Anzac Cove. It's 20 to 8. As you can see, there is thousands of people just rolling in. Don't know how they're going to fit everyone in. We've waited on a bus for the last 5 hours just to actually get into the car park and actually make the kilometre walk to Anzac Cove. So here we are. As you can see, there's a cast of thousands of New Zealanders and Australians. So it's going to be a great night. So I look forward to seeing you again about midnight and see where the crowd's at.
Yeah, the atmosphere was incredible, AB. The food vendors, you've got, obviously, been there for such a long period of time, you've got to have, and I would imagine for these guys, it would have been I suppose the biggest source of income for the year,
yeah,
I would imagine. And I think they actually, put a bid in to get their, I suppose, vending outlet nestled just past the toilets there, and they had the souvlakis going all night, the kebabs. It was
they're pretty good.
It was Ripper Roast Sunday. They were pulling out all the English slang, more cappuccino, like Nescafe cappuccinos, and they were having a ball, weren't they? They were just having a good old time. They provided very good hospitality and entertainment, and we did manage to sneak a couple of those kebabs in, couple of coffees throughout the evening, and but God, it was cold. We needed those sleeping bags, didn't we?
We did. Mate, it was the coldest in about 25 years, and so we're talking in the minuses, which was pretty scary stuff, and certainly not something that I'd anticipated. But it also brought to reality, I suppose, when we heard the stories about how many of these blokes died freezing cold, froze to death. It's ridiculous.
But it snowed, it rained, the weather they had would have been so more extreme than that one night we had.
Absolutely. And we did end up buying a sleeping bag, as Jason mentioned, which has prompted us for the 2012 tour naturally to incorporate an optional merchandise package, which will naturally include a minus-rated sleeping bag, as well as a beanie. And I don't know about the gloves. I'm tipping we might let people buy their own. I saw how fussy you were with size, mate. Triple extra large, weren't they?
They were. I don't know about the Turkish size.
Jason's were triple extra large and mine were medium, so I don't know exactly how that works. But
that's why mine fell off, I think.
It's true. That's true. But amazing build-up. I think the build-up for me was the best bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really enjoyed, I guess, the evening and what I suppose the way they did it. They had an MC that come on every 15 minutes and introduced a documentary about maybe a New Zealand story or a Turkish story and then an Australian story, and then throughout the evening there was, letters to loved ones from the diggers. I mean, some of the stories you heard, and just the fear that these guys must have been. They obviously put it down on paper, but the fear they must have been feeling throughout that time, must have been like just nothing I suppose you can ever comprehend.
You can't.
What do you think of the service, AB?
The service, that's a really good question, because I've been to dawn services in a lot of parts of Australia. More recently, of course, the last couple of years in Melbourne. And I guess it was about managing expectations. The service itself is a dawn service, whether it's at the Shrine at Melbourne, whether it's at Wangaratta, whether it's in Port Douglas, or whether it's in Cloncurry. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the same thing. And I guess I probably expected a little bit more, but what blew my mind was just the feeling of I almost switched off from what was happening in the service because I was so used to them. And I just felt where I was. And that's what it was. It was where, and as you said, the lead up, the hearing the letters, hearing the stories, that really made it for me. And I guess the service itself just was the official bit. It had to be there. But again, to not do that. Now that I've done it, it's easy to say that everyone should do it. And I wouldn't have said that 3 months ago. But now that I've done it, I believe the service is something that you must do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I probably walked away, throughout that service, I thought, oh, well, this is not much different to anything I've seen before in Melbourne or, other services that I've been to. But again, I suppose you have to correct yourself and go, hang on a minute. Just remember what you just heard through the last, 6 hours throughout the evening, where you are, what happened here. Think about it a bit more than just, expecting to be entertained, because a dawn service is not entertaining. Let's face it, it's quite not low, but it's an emotional experience. I guess
it is very
reflecting experience.
It is, and I guess if I mentioned about coming out of the trenches and sitting on the bus and no one saying anything, times that by 10,000, and that's what you got after the dawn service. Once the lone bugler had played the last post and there was the couple of minutes silence and then the reverie, and then it was done, you could have heard a pin drop for a couple of minutes, and which I thought was haunting and eerie, but very, very cool as well. I mean, the hairs came up on your arms and the back of your neck. It was pretty amazing.